Okay, welcome everybody in my next episode of Operators Table, where I host the best founders associate, chief of staff and head of ops from technology companies, agencies, early stage startups. Today I have a quite unusual guest. First guest not from Poland. We are going abroad. We have a guest from Spain, Barcelona, William. So maybe at the beginning you can introduce yourself. So where you are working currently right now, what you are doing, I don't know, what are your hobbies, whatever comes to your mind, man.
Yeah, 100%. Nice to be here, Thomas. It's a great initiative you're doing, and yeah, 100%. So I'm William. I'm currently based in Barcelona, and I work at Workflows.io. We're an AI native go-to-market services company, and we've been around for just over a year now, and we've scaled incredibly quickly, and we hope to scale continuously after that. I was originally born in Sydney, Australia, so quite far away, definitely far from Poland. But my parents moved us to Italy when we were kids, and so that really helped get us into some sort of international environment, and moved back to Australia to finish high school after that, and then came back to Europe just because Australia is pretty far from everything over there.
Exactly. Okay, so could you tell me a little bit about your maybe academic background, like where you are studying, what were your major?
Yeah. So I did my bachelor's in the Netherlands in a small little town called Maastricht. It's in the south. Beautiful little city. I would recommend it to anyone. In fact, my little sister's going to start there now in September, which is great. And I studied business engineering there, which was kind of this balance between the business side of a company and the engineering side. And that opened my eyes straight away to see the nuances between sort of what goes on in each side of the company and how different teams get managed across that, right? And the different thought processes that you have.
Mhm.
When you're on the engineering team, there's certain things that you need to get done, and certain metrics that you have to meet, which are normally set by some metrics that you have on the business side that you're pushing, right? Growth, product, whatever. And that was sort of the first view that I enjoyed. And now I'm studying, well, just finishing my master's here in Barcelona at TESADE. It's a master's in entrepreneurship. And I was positively surprised, to be completely honest, about this course. I thought, entrepreneurship, it's a bit, a loose word that can sometimes just be a place for people to go or to explore when they don't know what they want to do. And after coming here, I think it took about 2 weeks, and then I really noticed the pace. And people were, you're in an environment here where at least half the cohort are really wanting to build something. And the Barcelona ecosystem has grown in terms of the startup ecosystem in Barcelona, and it's been quite cool to see. And so it was cool being a part of that, and being a part of that since then. And the professors have been really cool. Our course program director is Jan Brinkman, and he was an early investor in Pinterest, serial entrepreneur, crazy guy, angel investor. We've done some cool stuff over this course, and just as an overall gist, I was positively surprised and have really enjoyed my time here and been learning a lot.
Yeah, because from my experience, I can confirm by also talking with different friends either in Poland or studying abroad that some like this courses that are called like whatever entrepreneurship, management, business management or business administration can really vary from university to university. So for me, I think what is the most important is that like the professors that are there teaching or like there are some guest speakers, they actually have experience, either if it's like building startups or being a VC or even like being at some nice C-level or like manager positions at nice companies. Because there are a lot of universities that I think they have this outdated kind of lecturers that their knowledge, I don't know, in the last 10 years is coming mostly from the books and their scientific papers. And I think it's fine if this is like another field, but especially in like building businesses and entrepreneurship, and right now with AI that is changing everything, I think it's really important that the professors actually have some experience. So I assume that at ESADE it was like this, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was, and I completely agree. And that was probably the defining part about it that made it sort of better than I expected, was that it was a very practical course.
Mm-hmm.
And we had courses where we were given €200 and we had to make as much revenue as we could, right? Super practical, fun, sort of outside the bounds of normal education. The one reason why, or the main reason why I decided to study here was they had a study tour where we went to San Francisco and Silicon Valley there. And that was awesome. We did that in January. This is past January, and that was quite an eye opener. It's quite impressive over there, and the scale and speed at which stuff happens over there is very impressive and quite humbling. And so that was one of the main reasons why I chose to study here. And the differentiator as well that I have seen between this course and kind of what I expected it to be as well was you had the education side of it, but then beyond that, how much outside of class, right, you spent learning or trying new things, networking, meeting new people, was also a part of it that allowed you to sort of expand this book of education, which was very fun.
Okay. And what do you think you learned the most coming out of this major, this other?
Well, there's definitely a few things. The biggest one being it's okay to fail, right? That it is completely okay. Everyone does it. I think there's a famous quote by, it might be LeBron or it might have been Jordan, right? Where he's like, in my career, I've missed
Yeah.
18,000 throws, right? So I've failed 18,000 times. But you never think about him like that, right? You think about the times that he won. And I think that's an important thing to really have and think about it and bring into yourself. Because if you're afraid to fail and you don't get started, you're never going to get anything done. So just go out there, and they told us this a lot in San Francisco as well. Just try fail as fast as you can every time, right? Because the time you don't fail, you're scaling, you're moving, you're growing, right? And it goes well. And that's definitely one of the biggest things that was an eye-opener. Was don't be afraid to fail. Try to fail, because there's nothing wrong with failing. You know, not doing is also failing at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think I also have the same approach to life, to like try and fail different stuff. I think I've tried already many things in my life. Some of them were bigger success, some of them are immediate failures. So I see this quote really relevant. Okay, and you mentioned that going to the San Francisco was quite opening. So how could you compare this world maybe to more our European listeners and to Europe startup / tech ecosystem?
It's different in terms of, I think in Europe you have these very small hubs of groups, right, that push entrepreneurship in those tiny hubs. I can see them around here in Barcelona. I know they exist in places like Milan. Munich has got a good one too. But they're relatively small and very tight networks. The thing about San Francisco and Silicon Valley is that whole area is an ecosystem. And the network there is insane. Almost every speaker that we had that came to talk with us at the seminars knew every other speaker, right? And so it was quite impressive. I mean, we were talking to people that were working on OpenAI advertisement, the advertisement product at OpenAI. We talked to Steve Blank, who was quite famous. He came up with the lean startup method. We, met the Craigslist guy, which was also quite awesome and great guy, incredibly funny, incredibly unique. And if I had to pin down sort of the difference between people over there and people in Europe, and not this doesn't go for everyone, this is just a broad spectrum, but I think it was Steve Blank that said it. And he says, if you go around, we were at Stanford, if you go around campus now and you talk to anyone, right, they're all going to have a startup idea or some idea that they want to be building. And they all have the confidence inside them to be the next Mark Zuckerberg or Musk, right? They all think that they're going to be that guy. And you take that sort of self-confidence and the constant thinking about a potential new idea, and you combine it with a lot more free capital. right? Venture funds there have a lot more capital to spend on startups, and they have a higher tolerance for risk, let alone more capital for the scale up. And so you take those two things and you just throw them at each other, right? All the time, constantly, and you get combinations that scale and grow. And I think that's something that's starting to happen more in Europe, both because we're seeing more venture investment from American firms into Europe, but as well, I think EU VCs are starting to understand this picture, and that it is an industry about risk tolerance. You don't go into the VC industry thinking that every win or every investment is going to make it there, right? You know that it can't possibly be that way. Obviously, you try to do your best. But yeah, those two combinations of VC money and people that think that they're the next big thing all the time, eventually hit it off.
Yeah, probably it's the reason is the mindset, because also, as you said, I think Europe is a little bit awakening. I'm talking right now with a lot of people who went kind of this like more career ladder path, like some investment bankers, private equity, or like consultants, either in Big Four and MBB. And actually, a lot of them right now are seeing that this is not what they want to do, and that actually want to change for some smaller, tighter environment, where there is, I don't know, a lot of passion for what people are doing, that they're also using current technology or introducing AI. So actually, a lot of consultants that are right now thinking of changing to like the smaller team startups, like pre-seed, seed. I would like to be either a chief of staff, founder's associate, or like working closely with the founder, mainly because they are just simply don't want, or they learned already this like kind of consulting framework or processes, how to the projects. And sometimes it takes a lot of time to be, for example, like the project leader and have some ownership. So they're also liking this, actually, owning something from end to end, like develop a new process or something. And the second, I think in lots of these companies, like they are far behind with using AI or some tools, and basically they are seeing the change that is coming the wave, and they are maybe a little scared also about that. If they will not start using this and getting immersed in this environment, basically they'll be not that valuable also in the job market. That's why I think they want to do this switch.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, now we can talk a little bit about your actually work experience and how you end up being the founder's associate at Workflows.io. So could you tell me what was like your first real job or gig, like what it was, where, what did you do?
Yeah, it's completely disassociated to what I'm doing now, but my first real gig was working at a supermarket filling shelves. Completely different what I'm doing now, but if I had to tie a few things in from that, it would have been that I was the only white guy doing that. And honestly, I learned what hard work was really about. When you're filling milk on shelves for hours every day, it's tough work.
Yeah.
Aside from that, I've been the founder's associate at a startup, energy startup based in Italy, because I had just finished high school, and between going to do my bachelor's, I thought it would be great to get some experience there. And I knew some founders that had just exited to H&M. And they were starting a renewable energy company. And it was about community solar projects kind of across Italy. And it was my first real exposure into sort of the nitty gritty from 0 to 1, right? Figuring out the actual setups of what goes on behind the scenes, not just the nice stuff that everybody likes to see. And it was just a lot of, going through the weeds, figuring out what's going to work, trying things that aren't working, talking to people about some perfect idea, some perfect contract where everybody wins, and just not happening, right? People just not understanding your vision, your product, what you're trying to do. And that pushes you back. But all that was a great experience, and I learned a lot of things from them, and I'm forever grateful for that opportunity. And they're doing quite well now, which is nice. But yeah, that was just sort of 9 months or so that I got to sort of really experience time with them there. And
sorry to interrupt. You were the third person in the team, or like there were, I don't know, two co-founders, and you were the kind of the third all-around person, but more from the business side, or like the team was already bigger. Like when did you join? It was like super duper beginning. It was like just PowerPoint presentation and validation of the market, or there were already like some first partnerships or clients on the line? Like what was the stage of the company when you joined?
it was as basic as you can get. I don't even know if we had a PowerPoint presentation at that time. I know we had a landing page. It was sort of the vision founder and the technical founder, and then myself, right? And so I was building out pipeline of who could our potential clients actually be. What is the vision that we're trying to push here? Understanding where there's gaps in the market. All right, who then could our potential client be from that standpoint? And then broadening out from there. Okay, we can see that we're trying to do community solar. Are we selling directly to the houses themselves, or are we building in some sort of holded trust that then of the community, and we build that community? What's our model here? Is it subscription? Are we going to be running, is it project based? Are we going to take a percentage of the savings of what they get from electricity? All things like that. Where are we going to be sourcing our panels from? It was just a lot of, let's say, setup, which was cool to see, and how deep that gets, right? And how often you work on something for a week, thinking that this is fantastic and what's going to be the thing that pushes you forward. And then it turns out, oh, actually, that's not allowed according to Italian law. And it's like, okay, fantastic. We go back, we start again. And that was definitely a learning there. It was just, all right, you get pushed back. And as Rocky says, it's not about how hard you get punched, but, how hard you can stand back up. No, not how hard you can stand back up, but keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And because for lots of people, especially young people who are, I don't know, studying their bachelor's, or they are freshly after their studies, it's not a common way to join like such a small company without any real traction, clients on the line, or already some organizational structure. What was the decision to join such a young organization and being a founder's associate, rather than maybe as like for first full-time kind of business office job, not to join some bigger organization, some, I don't know, agency or corporation?
To be completely transparent, at that time, I wanted to start my own energy company, renewable energy company. And so I thought, what better way to get experience than to join these guys and see what they're building. Right? Because I believe that if you want to get into something and you want to make it full term, you have to be or have some sense of deep domain expertise in that, right? And I didn't have it at the time. I was 18 and I needed to learn, and I was hungry to learn, and I just wanted to figure out what it would be like to start a company. And so luckily through my network, I knew these guys, and they were much older. I had families and stuff, but it was, exactly, great experience. I would recommend it to almost everyone, because I think that you get a sense of what your workload bandwidth could actually be, right? What is the amount of work that you can do as an individual? Because I fear that sometimes when you enter early stage at a company, you're given tasks, right? You're given a backlog of things to do, and you just sort of do them, and that's fine, 9 to 5. But what can you actually do if you don't have a schedule, right? You have to find the work yourself and complete it, and then figure out if that was the right work that you had to do. It's like the loop grows exponentially from doing the work, from figuring out what it is, to doing it, understanding if that was the correct thing to do, and then going back. And honestly, it was probably what made me fall in love with entrepreneurship, the unstructured part of it. There's a sense of freedom there, but also there's a sense of being tied down to reality too, right? You know, at the end of the day that you are stuck in this, and the only thing that is going to push this to succeed is your work, and a bit of luck.
Okay, so you worked there as a founder's associate, and what was the next step in your journey?
The next step was doing my bachelor's. I went in and did that, and that was a great experience. Learned a lot. Made some great friends, of course. And then coming out of that, I went to work for a consultancy based in Milan that we have essentially worked for also energy investments, but a lot of it had to do with battery technology. And so my main job there was talking with external and international investors and understanding sort of what sort of projects they were keeping their eye on, and then helping them bring those projects to life within the Italian ecosystem. And there was a lot of bureaucracy from the legal side of the company, and it was my first experience at a larger company. They weren't huge, but let's say 50 employees. And that gave me another view into sort of, okay, so I've seen 0 to 1. This is, let's say, 10 to 20 that they're doing now, and so you're able to make and mix and match and make connections between how you get from that 0 to 1 stage into this larger, right? How this company over here is completely structured with how they're operating. We were completely unstructured, and the experience that you get from that is completely different and I guess closer tied to your standard career climb the ladder entry point of going into a consultancy. But great experience, learned a lot, great connections, and enjoyed it quite a bit.
Okay. So then, as I'm seeing correctly, you started working inside some company organization inside the ISADE walls, right?
Yeah. So after finishing at this Italian consultancy, I decided to go and pursue a master's here at ISADE. And in doing that, I joined a team here at the university, and it was a really cool association that essentially puts themselves inside startups around Europe and Barcelona. And we are able to sort of assist them in doing whatever they need. It's in essence, it's a consultancy. And the whole sort of purpose is to ensure that they give us a problem and we fix it for them. One of the examples was building out pipeline for this company called 2.0. They were moving their sort of main business to a company in a country in Southeast Asia, and they were trying to understand the market there. And so we were helping them with that and things. And then there was some other tasks where we were running sort of operational strategy and understanding how can we smooth things out here, figure out where you're losing time, where you're losing money. Very, very quite typical consultancy things, but also another cool way to sort of get a hand into the ecosystem here, the startup ecosystem in Barcelona. Yeah. And then in the meantime of that, while I was studying here, I had started a company with some friends of mine in class. This was another great learning experience. Company was called A Structure, and we were doing document parsing, right? Which is in essence where you have large documents, right, full of data and or information, and when you give that to an AI model, for example, you paste that into a ChatGPT chat, 99 or 95% of the time it gets everything right, the content of the document and the numbers, and can source it correctly and reference it correctly. And 5% of the time it can't. It makes errors, it hallucinates, especially as those documents get longer. That amplifies and compounds. And so the idea is to pre-process those documents into different chunks, right? So you chunk based on the paragraph or based on sort of semantic understanding within the document. So if it's talking about a specific thing, then you chunk and take that out. And so then when you're supplying this information to your chatbot, LLM, whatever you want to call it, it's operating just off the information that it needs to know to get you the answer that you need to get. And by doing so, the references that it uses for those sources, you get a much higher accuracy, closer to 99.5%. Does this matter for everyone? No, it doesn't, right? For me, 95% is relatively okay for every time I'm talking to an LLM. But if you are sort of a hospital or a doctor, or you work in the manufacturing space and you're building a product and you want to understand what feature you need to add and things like that, those errors compound. So that was the idea. And so we were building out algorithms, building out a model to sort of parse these documents. So clients would give us documents that they needed, and we would parse them for them, and then provide them with the database of it, or in that element, the RAG for it. We were way out of our depth. Way out of our depth, we didn't have, again, deep domain knowledge in the area. It was sort of an idea spouted by my technical partner. He was working on sort of table structures, and so we got quite good in the algorithm and extracting elements from tables from these documents, which is one of the harder things to do. But we were competing against a San Francisco startup, and when I say competing, they didn't know about us, but we knew about them. And they're called Reducto. They're doing incredibly well. They're smashing it, and we had a pretty tough call with a customer one day here in Barcelona, basically with him saying, we can't beat Reducto on price or on scale right now. We don't have their resources. We didn't just raise $100 million. So he's like, guys, how am I supposed to go with you when you can't offer me the same price? And so I said, fair enough. And we had that a few more times and decided to, I guess, spend our time a bit more efficiently. And that's a shame, I'm not someone that likes to give up on a project at all. I think perseverance is an immense part of life, and it's something that you just have to keep pushing. But one of the regrets is not continuing to push that. But in hindsight, it led me to workflows, and I'm grateful for that.
But taking from this history of being a founder for a short period of time, I think at least it was the validation that the idea that you had, the problem you were solving, was actually needed on the market, since your competitor grew really big and raised a lot of money. So I think in all of the story is at least that just didn't work out, but at least you spot something that what the problem was bringing real market on the value.
Yeah, 100%. And that's something that sometimes I think people get wrong, is that, having a competitor sometimes is a great thing, right? Especially one that's slightly ahead of you, because you have that validation, like you just said, that there's market need for that. And you're not building blindly. So you have product market fit.
Yeah. So what did you learn from this episode of being a founder?
I learned that you gotta get your network right. You gotta be working, if you're a founder, you gotta be working both on the business side of things and also on what people perceive your business to be. And that's something I believe we did relatively well. We had a lot of meetings with VCs here in Barcelona and in Madrid, and a few in the Netherlands actually too, which was quite eye-opening, to be honest, because we had only just started and the product was being built. But they had heard of the company in San Francisco, and so we had some pretty interesting meetings with them. We weren't interested in raising money until we were sure this was something we were able to push all the way. In hindsight, that was a good thing that we didn't do that, because otherwise we would probably be still there digging our own grave against these San Francisco competitors. But yeah, exactly. So making sure that other people know about you is a very important thing. You can build in your bedroom late at night as much as you want, but I think nowadays, especially with software sort of being commoditized to a degree, marketing and making sure that people know about you is one of the most important things.
Okay. So also summing up this story, if there is another 20-year-old founder, would you advise him first to, for example, go to 1, 2, 3 years and work in the industry he's passionate and would like to build some company during his life? Or actually you would advise that if somebody really has an idea and a strong push, they should go either way without this industry and network knowledge, as you said?
My advice would be, rather than follow an idea you might have, ensure that there is a problem there that you're solving. Ensure that there is a pain point for your potential customer that is big enough that they're willing to pay for it, and very willing to pay for it. Also ensure that the person feeling the pain is the person that's going to pay, right? And we had this, a friend of mine had this potential problem where he was dealing with the construction industry and how a lot of the subcontractors don't get paid for a long amount of time. And it's hard for them to submit their work and ensure that their work is confirmed, and then they get paid. And the problem was that the person that feels the pain was a subcontractor, but their problem was lack of money. So they didn't exactly have the funds to pay for a product for that. And so you're now having to deal with a two-sided market there, and those things get very tricky. So I would I'll recap with the biggest point being make sure that you're solving a problem that is a big problem and there's a big pain point there, but make sure you know everything about that problem. And so leading back to what you said about getting market experience, it's probably one of the best ways to do it. And to be honest, something that we should have done definitely more, right? We weren't from the document processing market. If one of us would have been, maybe we would have known something more that could have given us the edge. And so knowing your market, knowing a problem within that, and then diving as deep down into that to solve it as you can is probably a good way to go about things. There's no perfect way to go about entrepreneurship. It's sort of a do and see kind of industry. If there was a perfect sort of formula, people would be doing it all the time, you know?
No. I think at the end it's the game. If as you said, that like there is no perfect formula, that's why also it's so hard. That like it's not like a playbook or like a GPT or cloud framework, 10 steps that you can just follow. As there are some LinkedIn posts regarding another topics. At the end, it's just a lot of trying and figure out all the way, and sometimes it clicks, sometimes it doesn't click.
Exactly, and just gotta keep trying.
Yeah. So one last question about your founder journey, and then we will go to current position at Founders Associate at Workflows. Do you think this experience was actually making you to want start another company in the future? I'm not saying right now, but I don't know, in 5 or 10 years, is it your goal? Or for now, you are kind of healed out from entrepreneurship and being like founder by yourself?
Never. That's what I want to do. I love it. There's nothing more I would want to do. That said, I think the hunger is to build something and be part of something that's being built. I might have some small egotistical side of me that wants to be the CEO and co-founder and push it myself. But at the end of the day, I think if you're part of a really smart team, and you're pushing it, whatever part you have in that, if you're proud and you have purpose there, that can be really fulfilling.
Okay, thanks. So now let's come to actually the nitty-gritty section that I wanted to talk with you about the most, is actually being a founder's associate at your current company, Workflows.io. So at the beginning, warm-up question, how did you even get this job there?
Yeah, completely out of the blue, to be honest. And thankful for that. I was sort of on the back end of this A-structure company that we were starting, and I saw them post a job opening in the sort of master's WhatsApp group chat with everybody in it. And I thought, oh, this looks super interesting. And I had some research into them and liked what they were doing. They're really active on LinkedIn, so that helped to sort of see what was going on there. And I applied. It happened super quick. I think it was 2 weeks or so. And then I got the job.
Okay. Was the recruitment process hard? It involved a lot of steps, or I don't know, you just write to founder or upload your CV or LinkedIn profile for like the standard form on the careers page or something?
It was sort of the first uploading stage was relatively simple. CV, answering a few questions about yourself, quite relatively standard. They had some cool parts where they was talking about asking what sort of tools you were using nowadays, which is important for the work that they do. So that was probably somewhere where that was slightly different to other things you see online. The part that got tricky was definitely the interview stages. The 3 partners, or the 2 co-founders and the partner at Workflows, Fivos, Dan, and Lorenzo, are super smart guys. And so any sort of bullshitting or trying to, show that you've done more work than you really have or had more experience than you really have was not going to work. it's a startup. They're busy. They got work to do. Give it to me straight. Give it to me concise. I don't need to hear the fluffy story. And that was refreshing.
Okay. So you joined in March 2006, current year. So now I think 3 months are shortly running by. So maybe let's talk about actually like what does it mean to be founders associate. I think you are naming yourself AI native agency, as also it was requested in the current and I think even previous batch of Y Combinator. So maybe for people that don't know, can tell me a little bit more. What does it mean to be AI native agency?
Yeah. Well, I guess people are still trying to figure that out, right? And I guess people have different definition for what it means. For us and for what we think that it means for Y Combinator is providing services to companies as an agency would via software, right? So providing these services in a way that is similar to what you would have seen with software, with, logging on to Rippling or any other sort of service, and getting your instead of getting your accounting software, you get an accountant that does the job for you. The benefits of this is that you relatively get to charge more, right? Because the customer is receiving the final outcome. They're not receiving something that they have to handle or act with. And so in terms of how you do that is, I guess, where the biggest argument is at the moment. Do you do that by plugging in Claude Code and just letting it run and trying to figure out everything? How are you building your foundation below that? Kind of how do you connect different data elements and entities between your business so that your agents understand what's going on everywhere? And I see a lot of stuff out nowadays where people are saying that they're building things completely AI native, where in reality it's still them just using AI. And so if you can't scale, right, in the services market, if you can't scale without adding headcount, I don't think that you can call yourself a AI native services company.
Okay. And how would you describe the difference between being a founder's associate before in the clean energy startup and right now being founder's associate in an agency? Also, of course, working in like technology area, working with lots of AI tools, but I think at the end it's kind of different business model, no?
It's a slightly different business model, but to be honest, Workflows acts a lot like a startup than you would think. We have sort of we have clients, and we do work for these clients, and we build out workflows for them and understand their problem, and it's quite hands-on. But at the same time, there are so many processes around that we're beginning to automate and have had automated for a while, that are allowing us to do it, and allowing us to experiment in ways that reduce sort of not the hands-on feel, but the hands-on time sink, right? Where rather than having two employees that need to stay and control the client for the entire process of the service, you have deliverables that you can deliver, you can remix, you can understand, okay, we've got a new client that just signed on that's relatively similar to work we did over here, and that gets automated, right? So having a system within an agent that understands, we've just signed on a new client, with that whole onboarding process that's happened automatically. This is what the client's proposing to build, right? And they have a meeting with an employee or go-to-market engineer, and we understand what their problem is, and that problem gets identified automatically as something that we've solved prior, something that we've built prior, and that sort of solution then gets brought onto them. And it's this idea of productization, right? You have to productize your services at the end of the day. Like you have subscription models, you need to have subscription models for services. So in the differences would be that with this company's, the Workflows is definitely much more far ahead than my startup experience at the energy startup. But in terms of the strategy behind the business you're trying to build, definitely sort of startup coded for sure.
Okay. And could you tell me a little how is your day-to-day looks like? I know that like it really depends based on like the company, the stage, and like founder's associate or chief of staff position. It's like everything each day something different, but maybe there are some core areas that like you have more ownership than in others, for example.
Yeah. I basically work under all three of them, Dan, Fivos, and Lorenzo, right? And my main task is to ensure that what they're spending time on is the most efficient thing for the business, right? And something that they need to be working on, whether that's sales, growth, strategy, things like that, and working on that with them as well. So I've taken on a lot of sort of background internal tasks, things to do with finances, payments, capacity planning for the team, as well as I even have some client-facing parts in my bandwidth, which is nice and refreshing. So I work with the content team there on client management, which is something that I haven't really done before at this scale, but it's nice, and I think that everybody at Workflows has a client-facing position, which I think is something that adds a lot of value to each employee, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to compound your team. You want to make sure that the team that you're building is an A level team. And so being remote first, right? We have to make sure that we're interacting with each other in ways that ensure that everyone sees the same visual of the business, right? And so if you have just a few people that are interacting with clients and they're the medium at which information flows, things can get lost and things can get misunderstood. And so by each interacting with the clients themselves, I think it's sort of a cool way to see information flow and to keep sort of this time sink of communications down as well. I think it's sort of happened automatically, but you can see it happen at a company, and you definitely know them, Palantir, right? With the forward deployed engineer that they have. And so I guess we have forward deployed go-to-market engineers.
Okay. And regarding navigating the remote online type of the company, do you have people that are span across Europe or also from bigger and larger time zones? I don't know, such from America or Asia or etc.
Yeah, we got people across lots of time zones. We have people all across Europe. We have some people in Southeast Asia, some people in India. The founders were just spending, I think they're still in the US now. So there's definitely this sort of handling the time zone across people. And I think that's something important to look at when you're hiring as a remote first company. Where are you hiring? Are you okay with having people that are within these different time zones? And are they okay with operating at sort of a stretched working day, right? Whether that's more in the morning and then they get a little bit of a break and work more in the afternoon, or how do they work? For example, with me, I have a lot of clients that are San Francisco based, which means that when I'm communicating with them, I have to be available relatively during those early morning San Francisco times, so later during the day here. And that expectation was super clear to me during the application process. And to that level of sort of transparency about what your job is going to be about is important. I'm going off on a tangent here, I guess.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Because I also had an experience working 5 times in office and then later working remotely and going like 1 or 2 times per week to the office. And I also went last year for 1 month to Cape Town in South Africa, and I was working kind of remotely for 1 month. So also I have 2 pictures. And yeah, everything has its advantages and disadvantages. For me personally, I think I'm learning more when actually I'm in the office within the team. And I also was closely working previously as like founders associate and venture builder. So it was also important for me to be close to like the CEO of the founder of the company. But I also think it really depends, yeah, as you said, how the culture is really set up. I think it's just the matter how the leadership team like aligns it. And also I assume there are 1,000 workflows or agents you could introduce that are reading all the notes from clients and like reading everything on Slack. So there is like this context that it's not going anywhere. It's not just in people's head, right? Because I think that's the biggest thing, that like when you are working remotely, the decisions will be slower and people will not have more context. So like everything is kind of dragging instead of being like faster made when people are in the office and can bounce things of each other.
Exactly. You hit it on the nail there, right? It's all about documentation, right? How can we ensure that everybody in the business is understanding what is going on and what decisions we're making? And so we have thousands of Slack channels. We have, and we really try to push people to communicate in those sort of grouped Slack channels, not DMing people, because in a DM, information is automatically lost, right? And you notice that a lot when it happens. And so communicating in that sort of way and building, and we take a lot of time to try and ensure that we're, doing that in the best way that we can. We take a lot of sort of, inspiration from other startups that are remote first or hybrid and see what they kind of do with sort of team meetings, all hands meetings, the stand-ups. How do they run those? How can we make sure that, people aren't wasting 3 hours a day in just in meetings that they don't need to be in, which I think is another important one that doesn't always get spoken about, right? Is that sometimes meetings are a huge time sink and you don't need to be in them, right? You could get the action points at the end of them, and that's enough. And so I think understanding what works for your team and figuring out best practices and discovering best practices it's a skill that the team needs to learn, right? And everybody needs to be doing it correctly. What is cool is that people they're fully independent in how they work. And you got to hire people that are of like high agency, right? They're highly independent. They understand what work needs to be done, how to do it, and whether that was the right work to do. And then the loop, like we talked about before. Other cool thing is that you get to do offsites. And so we had an offsite in Athens that I wasn't a part of because I wasn't part of the company, but that was a big success. And we're going to have another one soon. And that's where you try to get as much of the team together as possible, get them in person, get them bonding, make a family out of it. And that's very important.
Okay, perfect. I think we can jump to another topic. What would you say is the hardest in your job?
Oh, the hardest?
Yeah.
I think one of the parts of a founder's associate role is understanding the decisions that your bosses would make, so that when you're put in positions where you need to make those decisions, you're making the same decisions that they would. And doing that remote first has been relatively challenging, right? Because as you said, I can't really shadow them. I can come to meetings that they're in and understand that sort of thing, but I'm not shadowing them every day and seeing how they work. And so building out that sort of mirrored decision-making and thought process to Dan and Phoebos and Lorenzo was sort of one of the biggest challenging things, and making sure that I understood what sort of decisions they'd be making in each of the parts of the business, how they thought about things, but as well that when they didn't have an opinion on a certain thing, how can I mirror my decision to what's best for the company that they're trying to push forward, right? Their idea and their vision for the company. How can I make sure that that's connected to that? That's definitely the most challenging part. It's a very nuanced sort of thinking.
I think also it's a lot about trust, because I imagine as being a founder's associate, kind of you are the smaller version or clone of the founders. Sometimes people describe it as like a Batman and Robin, that Robin is like founder's associate or chief of staff. So I think it's important at the beginning to really build the trust between yourselves, so the founders know that in critical moment you can kind of take decision and correct one. That's how they would do it.
Exactly. I completely agree. For example, like if there's meetings that they can't get to because they're busy or they've doubled up their schedule, they need to be able to trust you to go in and act exactly like they would act on behalf of the company.
Yeah. And actually, I imagine that since you are a native company, but also since you probably also sit in tech, AI, and everything, what are like some workflows or tools that you are using, but more specifically not about like GTM, outbound, etc., but more just focused for your role as like founder's associate? There are some workflows more about like some maybe back office tasks that are, repeating monthly, like some, I don't know, as you said, finances, accountings, some payments, or is it touching completely like different area, maybe like building some tools that like people in the company would have more context and founders will be also on top of the things?
Yeah. Let's say it's an ongoing rolling process, right? One of the biggest changes that we made quite recently, just as I joined, was we moved the entire company knowledge to GitHub, right? And it's a relatively live state that's in now. And so everybody we have Claude Code across the company. And that's directly connected to GitHub, the repo, the company OS repo. And so what happens? How does that work, and how does that help us? Well, whenever somebody makes a change across the company, everyone else can see that after 10 minutes. It's a 10-minute sync. And so that ensures, that compounds people's work by connecting them to Claude. And we help them with best practices and everything, but everyone's quite experienced, to be honest. And so that has allowed us to sort of ensure that there's a source of company truth that we can operate across, and that things don't get lost, and that we can edit that and ensure that it's correct. And across that, you can start to build automations. And that's everything from things that you mentioned before, like reading Slack messages and ensuring that people have replied or have seen them. If they're important, ensuring that clients are responded to in a timely manner, and things like that. There's quite a lot of things that we're building out. I'm not too sure about all the ones I can talk about. One of the things that we're looking into now is sort of building out an internal ontology for everything. So you have the data within the company, and you need to connect the logic between this data, right? So what does a client mean for us? And how does this client connect to this part of the business? And building out that logic there, so that when you're building automations and agents that run on top of them, they're all talking about the same things, and they all understand the exact same way as to how things connect. And that's going to help us a lot in sort of automating different processes. And we have a really talented automation specialist in-house called Danny. And he's been really good at sort of connecting different workflows and making sure that things operate on a scale that is actually reducing time spent for people, right? Because I think that some of the things that happen is that you build out these workflows, but you end up managing them more than you actually are using the time that you should have saved on them. And so that's one of having sort of this criteria of what are we planning to build and how much time do we expect to save on this, testing it and ensuring that we're saving time on it is very important. Not that you're just building everything that you can want to build and stuff. Along those lines, we have this sort of thesis that everybody should be trying to replace the tools that they're currently using as well. And so that's a very interesting thing to explore and also to manage, right? When you have 20 employees each trying to build their own thing, or a specific solution to something that would make their life a lot easier, how do you connect them? And how do you make sure that it's all sort of happening in a scale that's manageable, and that you don't end up with 100 different things or 100 different Vercel URLs that are all hosted at, on different accounts, and you're having to figure out the logins for all of them. And so that these sort of thoughts and these sort of ideas really need to be deeply embedded. And I don't think it's as easy as just saying, let's automate this, let's automate that, and we leave it. These are things that have to evolve over time, and there needs to be some sort of live state to them that connects to a source of truth.
Yeah, I think what you said about that at the end, all of these automations or agents or however you call them are there to bring some value to the business. So usually it touches operations area, because this is something kind of that could be described in some kind of a process. So like, I don't know, some data, or somebody is putting some data from one tool to another. So there is some way to like save the time on doing these repeatable tasks. But yeah, I also myself caught that, I was like so amazed what I can do. So like I hosted my own CRM, Then I connected Claude Code to it, and then I created like 1,000 workflows, also connected with N8N to automatically set the ICP, blah blah blah, stratata. But at the end, yeah, after like 2 days, like I saw that like the automation was crashing every day, and I spent longer time trying to like actually figure it out and create my perfect self-hosted CRM rather than just maybe starting with Google Sheets, which has kind of the same functions. And for now, I don't have, like 10,000 CRM in my records, so it's also not that efficient use of time. And now I'm spending more time actually to outreaching and writing and follow-upping to clients rather than trying to make perfect my CRM with 30 rows describing how this client is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Can you tell me? Because I'm seeing that like now more coming actually to the scope of workflows, so like GTM, outbound, and sales stuff. Do you think all of these tools actually at the end will be like some LinkedIn or people in internet are describing that it will like replace the whole, for example, sales or GTM team, or at the end there need to be some person involved in it? Like, do you think that we are going till the way that there will be like this 1,000 tools with 1,000 different social signals, and then AI will read all of this and will create a perfect either like outbound message or follow up or some personalized lead magnet, or at the end there will be still needed some human input into it?
I think if you're going for quality, you need to have the human touch in there. I think the most effective way to sort of see a potential success path in the AI native services industry is going to be automating everything around your people, right? Don't automate specifically their touch to it, right? And I'll give you an example for this, being that we write content for some of our clients on LinkedIn, right? It's one of the services that we offer. And we do this because LinkedIn is an incredible inbound medium. I think as Dan and Fivos together, who are quite active on LinkedIn, have secured like 600 inbound calls from potential clients over the past year. Insane. And so we do this for clients based in San Francisco. And we have content writers on the team for that, right? And you'd think, well, writing a LinkedIn post, that's something that Claude Code can easily do. But the difference in terms of quality of what you get, right, when you have a consistent voice for your client and when you're ensuring that the posts that are going out are exactly what they should be and that there aren't errors in there, right? They're supposed to be industry experts. We can't be having sort of this low quality outputs for them. And there's these gates of quality assurance and ensuring that there is this sort of element of high quality, and that is the product itself, right? If I was selling you LinkedIn content writing, and I said, and you knew that I was just putting this into Claude Code and then sending you the outcome, you wouldn't be paying me much, right? Because where's the element in there? And the element is the expertise, right? And I don't think you can, or at least yet, you can't translate someone's expertise and experience into your LLM in a way that it's repeatable every time. And so that's what's super important, right? We have some extremely talented people on the content team, and that is in essence the product, right? Their output is the product. Okay, so we can't automate their output. So let's automate everything around them to make their life easier. And so sort of design drafting, different potential ideas, and sort of ensuring that the client voice is coming in, quality assurance, error handling. We have agents that double check to ensure that what's being outputted, if it's specific stats, etc., came from the client itself, or where did this source come from? So ensure that everything that's coming out is truthful, and Slack messages, all those sort of things. How can we sort of automate the life around them so they can spend more time on the quality outputs that cause you to have this high quality product?
Okay. I'm wondering because right now, every day, like lots of new AI or like technology tools are created. Some of them are more adjusted and welcomed on the market. Some of them, of course, are less. So I was wondering, how do you navigate this and the team and workflows with like having already some, tested set of tools with like multiple clients and on multiple workflows, and how you are going to like test kind of a new tool and trying to see if it could be incorporated in the company and also then tested on new clients. Or I don't know,
Yep.
maybe you test internally first, because I also know that like lots of these sales tools are also quite expensive. They could cost even like 100 plus dollars per month or even more, especially if this is like some heavy scraper or like social signaling tool. So how do you approach this?
Yeah, great question. We use over 35 to 40 different tools across the company. And that was definitely a learning curve when I joined. The sort of ideology behind when you start to test a tool is based on someone in the team discovering it, someone in the team testing it themselves, and then seeing the thesis behind how that can be implemented for a client, testing it on one client, and then sort of propagating that to others if it succeeds. The great thing about the industry right now is that tools and companies are constantly iterating, right? They're coming out with new things all the time. So when you buy a specific product or you're working with a specific tool, you get those increases in quality of that product or changes over time, right? And so maybe, you have to take on that cost of taking two at the same time, or the switching costs of switching them, if you really need. We've recently started using Ergo, which is an AI note taker internally. Fantastic tool. And, just in the past month of using it, we've seen changes that they've made to the product that have, made our lives easier. And so that's an important one. I mean, Claude Code is releasing updates every day. I have to, I have to be updating it all the time. Otherwise I'm losing track. So I think using as many as you can that aren't useless, which is the important part, right? You can't be having one-off tools. Try and understand what tools you can use for as many use cases as you can, and then ensure that they're compounding with you as a company. If they're not, look for alternatives. Keep testing different stuff. That's a cost you're going to have to take on, because you need speed, right? And if what the tools you're using are not also increasing their sort of product quality at speed, something's going to mismatch.
I think, I don't know, it was Google or Amazon that are spending yearly like 10% of the budget to R&D. So I'm thinking if this strategy would be also incorporated in like smaller companies, but also in bigger corporations. Because from my perspective, if you are like a CEO of like a bigger company, you have, at your head like hiring, creating product, doing sales, partnerships, maybe raising another round. But on the other side, every day something new comes on. So I'm thinking if the future wouldn't look like this, that like each company would have maybe their small dedicated team that would be just hired for this to, like test new tools, be on top of trend, trying new things in the company, maybe failing, maybe not. Because I don't see like, for now at least, the way for like all of these CEOs and founders to keep up with everything. Like in your case it's different because like this is what you do, right? You like create a lot of these GTM workflows and flows for people, but this is your job. You stay on top of tools, like testing different things, and actually with each like campaign or like content, you're also gathering more data, so you know what's working. But like for a company that's like working in different completely industry and have completely different model, I don't see for now a way how they come up with all of that what's happening right now.
Yeah, it's tough, and things are releasing so quickly nowadays, and things are moving so fast. So I think one of the easiest ways is to trust your team and to give them sort of the independence to try out different things that they believe could do well. Obviously, that highly depends on your team's culture, right? Otherwise, you have people spending money on tools that they don't need. But yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah. Okay, I think we'll be wrapping up. So Maybe do you have any last word or like sentence for like our audience that you want them live with? I don't know, either for like somebody that thinks of like the founder's associate or chief of staff position, or maybe I know another 20-year-old founder wanting to start something on their own, or maybe something from the, I don't know, GTM AI technology world that's coming to your mind.
Yeah, I'll sort of recap in reverse, I guess, of what you said. In terms of the market, I would be figuring out these tools, right? Try them every day. It's going to be the difference between you getting hired versus someone that doesn't know anything about them. Understand how you can 5x, 10x your output, to be, a dangerous force in a company that's looking to hire you. We're super excited about the industry, and I mean, there's been a lot of talk with Y Combinator. OpenAI has been purchasing some services companies and consultancy companies, which is interesting to see. We're super positive about it. We're incredibly excited about the opportunity that's out there and the growth that we're seeing internally and with our clients. And from an entrepreneurship level, just try it, just do it. Give it a go. Push, fail, it's all good. Sun will rise the next day. Founders associate roles are highly underrated. You're learning so close to the edge of the sword, right? To the executive team, which is somewhere you don't really get to be in any other role. And at startups, you get to see the messy side of it, which is even cooler, in my opinion. And I think what you're doing here, Tomas, is an incredible sort of idea, and thankful to be here.
No problem. Thank you very much, and bye bye, guys.